Hola amigos and welcome to another video. Today I would like to talk to you about Uprooted by Naomi Novik. And this book has been quite popular with the booktube community. It also won the Nebula Award for Best Book some years ago, not exactly sure when. And yeah, I think it deserved it. So for all of you who don't know, this book follows Agnieszka, and she's a young girl, teenager, like 17 years old. She lives in a quiet village and enjoys her life basically. The only thing is that there's a wood right next to her village, and in these woods there's some evil force lurking that's always trying to make some attacks on the village and just threaten all the safety of the people. So there's this one wizard that has the task of protecting them. He lives in a nice tower far away, overseeing the valley, and is kind of like the savior and the only one standing between the woods and the people. And the only thing he asks for as a prize for his help is that every 10 years he gets a girl from one of the villages to serve him for 10 years respectively, and then he will choose a new girl and a new girl. And this story begins right before the next choosing, and Agnieszka is in the year of the ones being chosen, but she's not worried for her own safety because everyone knows that the wizard will choose her best friend Kasia because she's beautiful, she's smart, she's capable and talented, and he always takes those girls. But as it turns out, she was worried about the wrong thing because in fact it is not Kasia he is choosing, but her. So what I really like about this book is that it has a very compelling story arc. It's very nicely done, and the writing is done in such a way that it really feels like kind of a modern fairy tale. And for someone like me who grew up with the fairy tale of the Brothers Grimm, it's just very enjoyable to read something like this. And I cannot even tell you really how she managed to do it, but it's kind of a vibe that's going on in this whole story where it just feels really like a modern retelling, even though it's not a retelling of anything. So it's very enjoyable, very nicely written. It has dynamic characters. The view is always from Agnieszka's point of view, but still you get to know a lot about the characters who at first seem just very mysterious, but in the end you learn about their motives and it all makes sense and it all is part of the bigger picture. So I really liked how these elements of the story came together overall in a very satisfying conclusion. So what I also really like about this book is that it is a fantasy standalone, and I think that's not very common for fantasy books because mostly fantasy books are at least a trilogy, if not massive series containing 10 books or more. So I think it's very rare to find a good fantasy standalone. Off the top of my head I can only think of about 3 fantasy standalones that come to mind easily, and I know I read a lot of fantasy, but mostly really long series, or at least trilogies. So I think it's very nice to just have a story that you can complete in a week of reading maybe, and just reading through it and then being satisfied, not having to wait for years for the conclusion to a different story. Looking at you, Patrick Rothfuss. Yeah, and also very nice about this is the magical system, which is kind of rare, I would say, in a fantasy world where it really has actual spells, actual made-up words that are the basis for the spells, kind of in Harry Potter or Aragon. But I think most of the fantasy I read has always some kind of inner power that you use without really explaining how it works, and this is really, really well done in the form that, yeah, you can have like textbooks to learn about spells, and it's always like these specific words, and if you kind of mess up the word a bit, it changes the outcome of the spell. So I think that it was really nicely done. I would say this book is really for you if you like fantasy and just want like a standalone read, a very, very good standalone read, or also like a quick read, something where you don't have to wait for the sequel. And this book is also for you if you want this modern vibe of the ancient fairy tales combined with like classic fantasy elements. And also what I think is very interesting, because mostly fantasy is set, yeah, in like the classic medieval setting that you know, with like, let's say, English knights or whatever. And this, as you can already tell by the names Agnieszka and Kasia, has like a heavy influence from Eastern European countries and folklore. So like all the names and all the stories' roots are kind of from this region of Europe, and I don't know of another book that's really based there, which I think is sad. I would like to know more, so if you have some, let me know. But overall, yes, I would definitely recommend this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. And please, if you have any other fantasy standalones you can share with me, then please do, because I would really, really love to read them and check them out. So yeah, that was all for today. Thank you and see you next time.